Hello, welcome to Balisong Meet the Makers. I'm your host, Chell Wong, and today we have Geof Dumas. Is it Dumas or Duma? I should ask
Dumas.
before you. Duma. Geof Duma. Geof is known for his EX series of Balisongs, such as the EX11. This one's the EX11 Trainer. Thank you for coming on. How are you doing today?
I'm doing all right, thank you. How are you?
I'm good. I should have asked you how to pronounce your last name before I went ahead.
All good. Better than I've
But
heard before.
oh god, what was the worst that you've heard?
Oh, I mean, just look at the spelling and think about me in middle school, you know?
No! Oh no!
Yeah,
Oh.
it wasn't
I'm
bad
s-
though. Yeah.
um
There were, but never in terms of production for sale. That
ah
is actually where the name comes from. The numbering refers to the design iteration. So 1 through 8 were bad, so they never got sold.
did you say
Um,
they were bad?
well, relatively speaking, but I didn't end up liking them enough to even really keep them assembled and keep track of them. The balance was, it took a while to get to the point where it was actually even remotely good for flipping.
I guess that brings me to my next question is how did you get into making battle songs? Was your EX1 the first battle song you made or did you do others before?
That was the first one, yeah. The story is that back in, I think, senior year of high school, a friend of mine, shout out to Kurt, and I would go to a local flea market every couple of months. And, there's always that guy with the van full of knives that you can buy from. Kurt picked up a um, maybe $10 cast zinc handle butterfly knife and started learning how to do the tricks, looking at Cutlery Lover on YouTube. And every couple of weeks, he'd come up with something that would just make me a little bit more interested in doing the same thing myself. So I got one. And I'd say maybe 2 weeks afterwards, both of our knives were completely broken. They just snapped on the handle. And
Hot garbage, huh?
exactly. And I've got that thing in me that says, I could do that better. And
Yeah.
I was on the robotics team in high school, so I had the trust of the shop teacher to use some of the equipment and access to. I think it was either Autodesk Inventor or SolidWorks at the school there. And I ended up making my first design prototype from there and slowly working on it from home, with just a drill press and a bench grinder in my spare time until something came out of it.
All right. And so how long ago was that, I guess?
I graduated in 2011, so it would have at least been then, but I probably started in 2010.
Okay, I have no idea how you look, and so I'm like, oh shit, you're only like 1 year older than me.
Oh, yeah.
So
Yep.
but that's really cool. And so like were these handles are consistent among the 9 through 11 at least, but I assume your first one's handles weren't this nice.
They were not nice at all. They were G10 flat,
Oh,
black, no features at all other than a chamfer on the side. But that was the X1 that I produced. The whole pattern that you see there was an idea from the very beginning. That was first put onto not paper, but digital paper in that shop class in high school.
so this was a design that you had on paper from like over 10 years ago, you're saying.
Just the whole pattern.
Gotcha.
The actual dimensions really didn't get ironed out for quite a while. I think the closest representation would probably been the X7. Before then, the handles were thinner, maybe about an eighth of an inch thick at most, and flat. Um, Definitely more inspired by the Chimera 2 than
Okay.
anything else.
Bradley Chimera.
Yes.
Gotcha. Do you have any of these? I assume that you say you didn't have any assembled, but if you have any of these old knives, I'd love to be able to see it in your camera.
I don't have them with me right now, unfortunately.
That's
Yeah, they've been packed away during a couple moves.
that's fair. So I guess how did you go about getting to like these handles? Like, what was the process? Just making a new version and then feeling like, oh, this was too thin, or this was how did that look like? Because obviously 9 is a big number compared to 1. So I'm just curious.
Right. Well, that first design that um, I'd made in shop class was, I think, all it was kept digital for a couple revisions. I was doing it all by hand for a while, and then I think it was revision 5. I got, I'd say, maybe 4 hours of access to a friend's machine shop. A friend of mine, his dad had a decent amount of machinery in his garage, and they were very generous and let me use that for a bit to actually turn out the first. Um, I think it was like probably just a standard Home Depot steel handle, but
Steel
true to,
handles.
yeah, I know, right? True to dimension for sure. But as soon as I had those in hand and realized what I was, you know, doing right and doing wrong, it was clear like everything needed a revision. It was very sharp, blocky, and it needed some more refining. So I ended up getting, I think it was just a student license of SolidWorks, and uh, basically starting from the ground up at that point for revision 6.
All right. I guess when did you start to be like an actual business opposed to dicking around to say but like I assume is it like CNC milled now, or do you these aren't hand milled, are they?
No, they are CNC milled. They've been CNC milled since the X8, and the way that I transitioned into that was um, I dropped out of college. I was going there for business administration, and it was pretty clear immediately that it wasn't for me. I don't particularly think that school itself was a good business college. Um, and I kind of,
Roast.
yeah, watch out UML.
Ooh, there it is. I wasn't sure. I was like, I wasn't gonna ask you where you went, but
No, no, they're good for nursing and probably engineering, but not so much for business. But that mindset that I mentioned earlier was, I think I could do that a little better. So um, I thought, well, I'll go into business for myself. I just start a machine shop because I've been drooling over some machines that I've been, wishing I had just for fun for a couple of years now, and I had it in my head that if I had access to them, then I could do something good with them, and not necessarily knives because I didn't really think that was a viable business at the time. Um, but I started off by getting a Tormach 770 and a couple support machines to be able to produce, basically anything for any customer. And I got sidetracked really quickly. I got the models finalized for the new revision. I came to the realization that like fixturing is probably the hardest part of machining, at least for a beginner. And by the time that I had gotten that all sorted out, I was basically at the point where the hard work was done, and the reproduction of those same parts over and over would be the next step. So the business kind of fell into my lap at that point.
can you explain exactly what fixturing is to us who are not familiar with machining?
Sure. So fixturing is going to be basically the design and production of parts that you can um, install onto a milling machine or any other type of metalworking machine. It could be as common as a drill press or anything like that. That allows you to put um, prepared material on those on those parts in a way that is repeatable, accurate, and um, easy to work with, while at the same time being able to keep it rigid throughout whatever processes you're putting it through. So, where you might see on those handles there. All those um, elements of assembly are also going to be elements that are combined into fixturing for parts like this. So the blades, the handles, the spacers, they're all held on to a fixture uh, through the holes, the slots, the pinholes, um, and kept in place that way.
Okay, and so like the hardest part is just to make sure that, because I assume it's like the whole thing is just the fixturings, right? And then like the rest is more like, I would assume, hopefully consistent once it's like good. I guess that's
Yeah,
kind of the hardest part, is getting off the ground, huh?
effectively, yeah, because what you want to do is you want to create a fixture that you can put a part on and have it held there accurately and repeatably, but also in a way that's wear resistant. So you're
Mm-hmm.
working with hard metals, um, and if you're applying a lot of force to them and effectively scraping them on and off the fixture as you're loading and unloading parts, it doesn't take too long for, say, an aluminum fixture to get worn through if the feature that you've designed is a little too delicate.
So a lot of that is just kind of the design, huh? Not like the machine or the materials.
Yeah, sometimes. Sometimes it's fairly simple replacement. Say you're threading a screw in and out of a fixture a dozen times a day. Maybe all that it takes to make that a long-lasting fixture is by installing a threaded insert made out of steel into the aluminum so that it experiences less wear. Sometimes it's more complicated in a way that you need to make sure that um, the fixture, or sorry, the clamping method that you're using doesn't actually end up damaging the part over time, which it can do. If you're working with too tight of a fit, it can end up galling and sort of unavoidably scraping the parts.
Ugh. I feel like it's kind of easy to think of like, yeah, I can just CAD design some handles or whatever, and then send that to a machinist to just make, and then it'll just be done, and it'll be like that. But I guess it doesn't take into account of like the setup of putting it in a fixture and the consistency of all that stuff. So there's so much that I think is just kind of not necessarily even, not even just understood or comprehended or even like thought about. So like that's something that I didn't even think about necessarily, in terms of like, I knew about like you would have to obviously have the repeatable parts, and I've seen like the fixtures that they've been on, but I never really thought about the whole design and the consistency and how you design for that and how you maybe adapt your fixtures for that. It's
Mm.
interesting. I guess did you have any influences for designing your knives, or was it just like you had an idea and then you iterated upon it over and over?
Well, I'll say the design for the earlier X uh, designs were definitely heavily influenced by
Oh, right.
the Chimera.
Right.
Um,
That's on me.
no problem. There's a good amount to that. But what really kind of drove me into wanting to make my knives in the first place was um, I skipped a step earlier. Between me deciding that I could do it better and experiencing a broken $10 flea market knife was me wishing that I had the money to buy a Jerry Hom design. Um,
Ah,
at the time, I don't believe they were even readily available, and I certainly didn't have the money to drop on something so nice. But
yeah.
that those designs that he was putting out were really, I think, at the very least at the time, the best I'd ever seen, and still
Yeah.
some of my favorites.
I actually had Jerry on 2 episodes ago, and it's kind of wild how long he's been in this industry, and he's been a force in this community for a hot minute, and so it's cool to see like how modern makers and designers are influenced by him and like work or stand beside him now. It's just kind of interesting to see people who've been around that long kind of see their influences trickle down. I guess I have a question of like, is there anything that you learned from the EX 9 through 11 that you plan on changing or moving forward? Do you plan on doing an EX12 or 13 or 20?
I definitely have an EX12 design in the works. There are a couple things uh, that I've worked on in terms of design changes in general for the older models. I'm going to be putting out revision 2s. There's just not enough in terms of like visual indicators to call it a new revision, I think. So I'll be refining the bevels on the 9 through 11 and making them a little bit sleeker, a little bit easier to manufacture.
All right.
Um, I've definitely learned a good amount about what it takes to put them together reliably, what tolerances need to be the tightest and which don't necessarily need to be um, as heavily controlled.
Yeah.
I don't think there will be too much in terms of visuals that will be changing, but there will definitely be some updates, small
Mostly to the
things
blades.
to the blades and to the handles as well.
Okay.
I've made some revisions to the spacers, and I'm planning on making the handles all include little things like the notch for the latch, even though that's a very rarely utilized feature. I think it would be
Yeah.
good for those who do actually enjoy that.
Gotcha. Do you feel like you have a lot of customers that are like, if only like I need a latch? Because I do see that on your website. You have springs, you have latches. Um, do you find that you have a lot of customers that are like, and also pocket clips? Like,
Mhm.
have you found a demand for it? Wow.
It is a I I'd say it's a common thing to want pocket clips more so than latches, and I was surprised by that. I never would have guessed that somebody would be going for a pocket clip without a latch, but I do very frequently see that. Sometimes people will get both left and right side pocket clips, so that there's no risk of opening and all that. The
I
latch,
feel like the risk of opening is because of the latch, opposed to a
yeah,
pocket clip, though.
yeah, exactly. But people really don't like how it gets in the way for flipping
Yeah, it does
sometimes.
affect flipping.
If I was going to choose one between the two, though, the off balance, I feel like can be mediated with two different materials as spacers, like titanium on one side with the latch, and then stainless on the other.
Gotcha. You'd probably still have a really handle bias knife that way, though.
Yeah, fairly. And that's something I'd like to do with um, the coming designs is I do want to make a little bit of a weight reduction to the handles.
Okay.
But yeah, I'd say maybe 5 to 10% at most are people who end up using a latch, at least for my
Huh.
customer base.
Okay. That's interesting that like that. I guess obviously you have sales metrics from your site. Are you able to tease what the EX12 design would be? Like, I don't know if it's too early for that, or if you have a proto that you would be willing to show, or I don't know.
We're not quite there. I thought we would be fairly soon, but I ended up completely changing my mind on the blade profile. So I'll tell you, it's not going to be a Warrenclyffe.
Okay. Where's it going to be a Warrenclyffe before?
It was, yes.
Okay, and you changed your mind.
Yes, yeah. The uh, I'm looking for something a little bit more utilitarian. And as much as I've had a couple of Warrenclyffe profiles of just standard folding knives that I've carried for a while, and that's been on the top of my list for actually using. But I found it's a little bit too prone to, at least with my specs on the prototype, a little bit too fragile at the tip.
Dang. Maybe for 13 if you manage to get that down. I
Yeah,
guess.
I've got a few
Oh, go
ideas
on.
that may solve the problem, but I wanted to move forward a little bit faster.
That's fair. What profile are you thinking now?
Now I'm leaning towards something pretty similar, just a sheep's foot.
Okay, yeah, those
Yeah.
are Those are pretty close.
Yeah.
So I'm not as much of a knife person. I love flipping, and I think
Hmm.
knives are cool. I just bought one of my first folders because I'm like, this looks sleek and utilitarian, and it's like a Watauga, which it kind of looks like a Warncliffe, but like you said, the Warncliffe wasn't as good utility wise, but the sheep's foot is better. Why is that?
Well, there's a little bit of a limitation with the going with a full flat edge. Um, when it comes to a butterfly knife, it ends up meaning that it's fairly difficult. Like, say you wanted to um, apply a lot of downward pressure on something, the angle at which you're able to do that without getting your hands or even the um, handles in the way are kind of limited. Having a curve to that gives you a little bit more access to more of the blade.
Gotcha. So it's just the fact that this is straight.
Effectively, yeah. That and
Okay.
the tip of the blade being so forward. Like I said, I may just have had a bit of bad luck with how thin I ground the blade, but it seemed to the tip popped off pretty easily.
Dang.
So
Yeah,
um,
that's definitely something that people would absolutely care about. And the
yeah,
sheep's foot is not straight the whole way because I know the tip is forward opposed to where like a Tanto is. But how is the sheep's foot different from a Warncliffe?
a little bit of a recurve towards the tip, so it pulls it back more towards the center. It's fairly similar to a Warncliffe, but just that subtle curve, at least for me, made a very big difference in terms of usability.
Okay, and obviously because Balisongs are gonna get dropped, being able
Yep.
to maintain their structural integrity and of course the tip that's really important for people because man, I had a YouTube commenter who's like, "Yeah, I could teach you how to never drop your I'm like, "You don't flip enough." um, so I guess you did tell me about a little known difficulty. What would you say maybe is a signature to your design philosophy?
I think the big thing that I might have that a lot of others do not is I really personally enjoy the ability to keep as many parts interchangeable between designs as can be done. Um, I aim for user replaceable parts as well. I don't want to have to be the source for the washers and screws that you
Yeah,
use. Um,
unlike the Tesla Cybertruck, you get in a car accident, the whole thing's wrecked.
yeah, yeah. I heard about that. They said your warranty goes out if you don't put it into the right like setting when you get it washed.
That's
That's
stupid.
yeah, that's kind of the opposite of what I'm looking for. I
Yeah,
really hope to make it as close to like as close to possible as just I'm tripping over my words here. I want people to be able to go to a random hardware store
all
and
right.
get the screws that they need. I really like it to be as realistic as possible for somebody to walk into any random hardware store and be able to get parts that they need for this.
The hardware, screws, washers, sex bolts, I assume.
Yeah, ideally, yeah. The sex bolts are definitely the hard part there, but
Hmm.
the um, the upside to that is a fairly well-known part supplier in the knife making industry. Alpha Knife Supply is where I get
Okay,
those.
sure.
So anybody can toss down $2 and get some replacements.
Yeah, that's good to know.
Yeah.
Uh, I guess. Uh, is there anything you would like to tell the listeners about things that you have going forward? You did tease the EX12, which is exciting
Hmm.
because new shapes are always fun.
Yeah.
Are there other blade shapes that you're considering as well, or is there anything else on the horizon for Geof Dumas?
Well, I've had my XEDC in the works for quite a long time. That's been a
The what?
major. The XEDC. It's a miniature version focused on not flipping necessarily, but more of a user knife.
Huh. Actually, do you have that? Because I would like to see it. Because I did not. I was actually going to ask if you had other ballot like other things besides the EX series. I didn't know that.
Oh yeah. Well, it's been in the works for way too long. I don't really talk about it as much because it's just caught me up so many times with honestly just bad deci- bad decisions that I've made from the start. Unfortunately, I don't have anything I can show you here. Similar situation. Yeah, but I'm sure I'll be able to post on that fairly soon if you want to keep an eye out. But yeah, that's something like a I think I started that in like 2017.
Oh wow.
I know. Yeah. Um,
It's funny also because you're like, you could either show your face or you could show the products, and so you have it set so that you could show the products, and then
yeah.
all the things that you talked about you didn't have.
I do have uh everything that I sell right now except for an assembled X10. But for the X10, I have one of these. It is a Thor Damasteel blade. Um,
Whoa, that's sexy.
yeah, this is a very nice etch that I finished up the other day. Hopefully, the customer's been very patient with me, and
Gotcha. So
hopefully
it's a
they're
custom.
yeah, hopefully they're liking the look of that. Um,
I
so
like the look of that.
yeah, this is a sign of things to come. I have, I believe, a dozen more Damasteel orders that will be coming out fairly soon. Some of them
Okay.
with no names to them yet, so they'd be put up for general sale.
Gotcha.
Um,
I
and
guess one thing I forgot was
sure,
also sometimes your handles have carbon fiber inlays. I guess why do you do one versus the other, and what determines that? Because I just have the titanium handles, but the carbon fiber inlays look quite nice.
the carbon fiber is for primarily aesthetics. It's something I've always really liked in knife handle. If I knew I was never going to drop it, I would always carry a carbon fiber inlaid design. Specifically, one of these I just churned out. This is a
Ooh,
fat carbon material. It has brass. I don't know if you can see it too well.
I can.
Yeah.
That's nice.
Brass layers in between the carbon fiber. They, I just like being able to offer different customizations in that way. Of all of them, I'd say carbon fiber, just the plain black carbon fiber, is the most ordered. But I have every color of G10 that they make, I believe, as well as
Oh, I've never
probably.
seen a G10 inlay in a
Oh yeah.
EX or X.
Well, right after carbon fiber is black, so they're hard to pick out. And then after that, I think would be red, then blue. And I'd say I probably only sold about 6 in blue. The rest have been scattered across other colors as maybe a 1 or 2 per.
Do you plan on doing more inlay variants opposed to like just having the whole pattern?
I've thought about that. I don't think I will in the near term, though. The logistics behind creating a lot of different types of inlays is fairly significant just because of the amount of setup that needs to be done.
That's fair.
When you manufacture these composite materials, especially carbon fiber, they create a lot of mess no matter what you try and do to contain it. So when you're working with a single machine, that whole thing needs to be basically taken apart and washed. Not the machine itself, but all the fixturing and all the tools behind it and everything
That's
like
still a
that.
lot of upkeep though.
It is. So I try and keep it to like a seasonal production schedule. Maybe
That makes
once,
sense.
maybe twice a year, I will work on composites. But other than that, I try and keep it down.
Okay. I guess I did ask you what did you want to tell our listeners, but before that, I know that you had an EX69. Was that you or was that someone else named that?
No, that was I know who you're talking about. That was a custom order for a specific engraving. Um, I guess I was feeling like that would be a good idea to put out without any explanation, but um, yeah,
Yeah, I
but
remember seeing someone post it on Facebook, and I was like, it looks the same, but it has 69 on it.
yeah.
Do I want this? But yeah, I guess is there anything that you want to tell our listeners? Because I went like, oh shit, I forgot about a thing. you told me actually about like what was it called? The something
XEDC.
something XEDC. Okay, so it's like a smaller version, like shorter.
Yes, I'd say it's a pretty similar length to the Benchmade 51.
Okay.
Yeah, but
So
still the same
that's still
titanium
like
handles and everything like that.
okay. So it's still like a reasonable size. It's not going to be like super small or whatever.
No.
Okay. So that's on the horizon, and or X12
Mhm.
is on the horizon, and that's going to be a sheep's foot.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So is there anything else that you want to tell the listeners about besides those two things?
No, I think that's it. Other than if there are any customers who are on my books at the moment listening, thank you for your patience. I appreciate it more than I can say. And yeah, thank you for anybody who supported me.
All right. And with that, thank you for tuning into this episode of Balisong Meet the Makers. Like and subscribe for more. And Geof, where can our listeners find you online, your store, or your social media?
My website, which is primarily just a store, some pictures, is gdktllc.com. And online for any sorts of updates and progress pictures, you can go to Instagram at Geof Dumas.
All right. And I will have those linked into the description of this video. And with that, see you next time, everyone. Happy flipping, and thank you so much, Geof.
Thank you too.
Boop.